Well, actually, let me start with the first one, and then I'll approach the second question. In conjunction with a nonprofit organization called Built to Last, the Sequoia Union High School District conducted a study to try to determine the number of dropouts from East Palo Alto in the class of 2006. That means the students that were seniors in the year 2006. And what that study showed that if you took the number of students from East Palo Alto that entered the Sequoia Union High School District as ninth graders and compared that to the number that graduated 4 years later, it was in the 70 percentile, I think it was 73%, that did not graduate in the 4 years later. So when you drill down and look at, well, what happened to that 73% that didn't graduate, and this goes to the answer, partial answer to your second question, some of those students moved out of the area, and we don't know, what happened. Perhaps they went to another high school, perhaps they truly did drop out. That was about half of the 73%. I'm doing these numbers from memory, but we have them in writing. I think it was about 15% of that 73% did graduate, but it took them the summer. They had to make up some classes in that summer, and so they graduated a few months later. The rest of the group, we frankly lost track of, whether or not they just stopped going to school and we couldn't get in touch with them either through their last known address or last known contact information, or whether they moved. We just don't know. Part of the problem in getting accurate information about dropouts, not only in this district but throughout the country, is the first thing you have to do is define a dropout. What is a dropout? So for example, is a student who graduates in 5 years but doesn't graduate 4 years after they start in ninth grade, are they considered a dropout because they won't show up having graduated 4 years later? Of course not. Is a student who leaves the area and leaves school for maybe even 2 or 3 years and then comes back later and gets a high school diploma through an adult school or through a GED, are you counting them as a dropout? And those questions haven't been uniformly answered, not only in the state, district by district, but also in the nation, and that needs to be done.
Thank you. So as a follow-up to Maribel Mendoza, I have a question for Ms. Olivia Martinez and Sharifa Wilson. District officials report that Carmont High School in California, where many East Palo Alto residents attend, has a 7.9% high school dropout rate. Such numbers do not correspond to the high school dropout rate for East Palo Alto students, which is estimated to be higher than 60%. What do you believe is making it so that there is such a strong contrast in numbers, and how can we create an effective system to track the dropout rate in each community?
So I'm actually not the one to speak to how Sequoia District either calculates or doesn't calculate. I know that it can't be as low as 7%. We see them on our streets every day. So I don't know what well, this is actually a question I had. I heard that the way that a student is defined as a dropout is that they actually have to come in and complete a form that says that I'm not coming back to school. Is that accurate? Or they just don't show up and then you just start checking?
Well, the question of dropouts, how many there are, what percentages, has been debated and discussed and argued, I'd say, for the last 30 years. In fact, when I was Associate Superintendent of Schools in San Francisco Unified School District, I headed up a national study on school dropouts. And we were asking the same question. We were asking, what can we do about it? And the title, it all stemmed from this research study that had been done that said make something happen. Somebody's got to make something happen to stop this. So, and that's when they identified that some schools were requiring students to fill out a form and say, yes, I'm dropping out, I'm not going anywhere else, I'm just quitting school. Other schools would say, okay, bye, see you later, didn't ask. And still others would only count them as dropouts if they actually left. So what my study basically produced was that there's such a mishmash of the way people report things. It was all of what they wanted out of the data. And in fact, when people were writing grants, when they wanted to get money from the federal government, they would report 73% dropout rate. But in the reality, for example, at Carmont, that you asked specifically about Carmont, I'm pretty familiar with that because I spent a lot of time up at Carmont. I had the same question in my mind because I look very carefully every year when we get full reports on how students from each of the school districts that attend our schools do. So in looking at the Ravenswood school districts, we can actually tell you how many of them failed the high school exit exam on the first try, on the second try, on the third try, how many of them by ethnicity, by school, and therefore we've got a pretty good handle on how they're actually doing. At Carmont, for a long time I believed that in part it was the self-selection process, that those students who want, Carmont has a very large, loyal following of East Palo Alto residents. They are fiercely loyal to Carmont, and even when given the opportunity to attend another school, choose Carmont over the others. And I said, what is it about Carmont? It was one of the reasons I spent a lot of time up there. And what I found is that it's a school that has a higher percentage of white students than any of the other schools, number one. And number two, there's much less separating of students by who they are. This is my observation now. So that as I went up there and I saw kids out from East Palo Alto. I said, how come you guys, what is it about this place that you like so much? And they all, to the last one of them just said, well, you know, you feel at home here. People are friendly. They invite you places. And they're competing against more students who are at or above grade level. So I thought for a long time, it's like, if you have high standards around you, you rise to those high standards. If you have more confusion around you, then maybe you don't. However, I have to tell you that we got more data this last year in looking at more specifically about the families of the students who attended Carmont. And another variable that came into play, and that was that the students who went to Carmont tended to come from families where there was a higher level of education. More of them had completed, the parents had completed high school and had gone into even some college. So there was a higher level of expectation that came out as a result of parents who themselves had finished school and really had a high value. So what does that leave us in terms of your question? What is it Carmont is doing? I think they're surrounded by a much larger percentage of students who are fluent English speakers, native English speakers, number one, my opinion. Secondly, Carmont does a tremendous amount of extra beyond the, call of duty. Every single teacher, almost all the teachers at Carmont leave their doors open at lunchtime and their classrooms fill up. Students are free to come in and have lunch with their teachers, and that fosters a different kind of relationship. They all have people that look out to connect with them. So I think they have a very special thing going on at Carmont that you can't discount. And I give them a lot of credit. Not that our other high schools aren't doing similar things, but again, they don't have the unique mix of students that Carmont does. Carmont has far more high-achieving white students in their population than our other high school students.
Thank you for your response.
Okay, we're going to switch gears a little bit, and our next question is from Cassandra Solano.